Hi, so we are going to read chapter 19. Let's start. In the last chapter, what happened was that Holi was in the Club Diva, and there was like screening of her brother Declan's short film, which he had filmed around Holi's 30th birthday celebration. And from what we know till now, it has been really embarrassing for the girls, and Hode has suddenly remembered what had happened that night, and she's utterly embarrassed. She's hid her uh, head in her hands, and now let's see what happens next. Chapter 19. Paul and Mustache Man rushed upstairs to the club and met the very big man at the gold curtain. "What's going on?" Mustache Man asked him. "Those girls you told me to keep an eye on tried to crawl through to the other side," Big Man said seriously. You could tell by looking at him that his previous job involved killing people. He was taking this breach of security very seriously. "Where are they?" Mustache Man asked. Big Man cleared his throat and looked away. "They're hiding, boss." Mustache Man rolled his eyes. "They're hiding?" "Yes, boss." "Where?" "In the club." "I think so, boss." "You think so?" "Well, they didn't pass us on our way in, so they must be here," Paul piped up. "Okay," Mustache Man sighed. "Well, let's start looking them. Get someone to keep an eye on the curtain." The camera followed the three bouncers as they patrolled the club, looking behind couches, under tables, behind curtains, and they even got someone to check the toilets. Foley's family laughed hysterically at the scene unfolding before their eyes. There was a bit of commotion at the top of the club, and the bouncers headed towards the noise to sort it out. A crowd was beginning to gather at the two skinny dancers dressed in gold body paint and had stopped dancing and were staring with horrified expressions at the bed. The camera panned across. Underneath the gold silk sheets, there appeared to be three pigs fighting under a blanket. Sharon, Denise, and Holy rolled around screaming at each other, trying to make themselves as flat as possible so they wouldn't be noticed. The crowd thickened, and soon enough the music was shut down. The three big lumps under the bed stopped squirming and suddenly froze, not knowing what was going outside. The bouncers counted to three and pulled the covers off the bed. Three, three very startled looking girls, like deer caught in headlights, stared back at them, lying there as flat as they could, with their arms stiffly by their sides. "One just had to get 40 winks before one left," Holy said in her royal accent, and the other girls burst out laughing. "Come on, princess, the fun's over," said Paul. The three men accompanied the girls outside, assuring them that they would never be allowed back into the club ever again. "Can I just tell my friends that we are going?" Sharon asked. The men tutted and looked away. "Excuse me? Am I talking to myself? I asked you if it was okay if I go and tell my friends that we had to leave." "Look, stop playing around, girls," Mustache Man said angrily. "Your friends aren't in there. Now off you go, back to your beds." "Excuse me," Sharon repeated angrily. "I have two friends in the VIP bar. One of them has pink hair and the other one—" "Girls," the bouncer raised his voice. "She does not want anyone bothering her. She is no more your friend than the man on the moon. Now clear off before you get yourselves into more trouble." Everyone in the club howled with laughter. The scene changed to the long journey home, and all the girls were in the taxi. Abby sat like a dog, with her head hanging out of the window. "By order of the taxi driver, you are not throwing up in my cab. You either stick your head out the window or you walk home." Abby's face was almost purple and her teeth were chattering, but she wasn't going to trek all the way home. Kiara sat with her arms crossed, in a huff, angry with the girls for forcing her to leave the club so early, but more embarrassingly for blowing her cover. As a famous rock singer, Sharon and Denise had fallen asleep with their heads resting on each other. The camera turned round to focus on Holly, who was sitting in the passenger seat once again. But this time she wasn't talking the ear off the taxi driver. She rested her head on the back of the seat and stared straight ahead out into the dark. Holly knew what she was thinking, and she watched herself. Time to go home to that big empty house all alone again. Happy birthday, Holly. A very cold Abby's tiny little voice trembled. Holly turned around to smile at her and came face to face with the camera. Are you still filming with that thing? Turn it off. And she knocked the camera out of Declan's hand. The end. As Daniel went to turn the lights up in the club, Holly slipped quickly away from the gang, escaped through the nearest door. She needed to collect her thoughts before everyone started talking. She found herself in a tiny storeroom, surrounded by mops and buckets and empty kegs. What a stupid place to hide, she thought. She sat down on a barrel and thought about what she had seen. She was in shock. She felt confused and angry at Declan. He had told her that he was making a documentary about club life. She distinctly remembered him not mentioning anything about making a show of her and her friends. And he had literally made a show of them. If he had asked her politely whether he could do it, that would have been a different matter. Sorry. That would have been a different matter, although she still wouldn't have agreed to it. But the last thing she wanted to do right now was to scream at Declan in front of everyone. Apart from the fact that it had completely humiliated her, Declan had actually filmed it and edited very well. If it was anyone else but her on the TV, Holly would have thought it most deserving of the award. But it was her, so therefore it didn't deserve to win. Parts of it had been funny, she agreed, and she didn't mind so much the bits of her and her friends being so silly. It was more the sneaky shots of her unhappiness that bothered her. Thick, salty tears trickled down her face, and she wrapped her arms around her body to comfort herself. She had seen on television how she truly felt, lost and alone. She cried for Jerry, she cried for herself, with big heaving sobs that hurt her ribs whenever she tried to catch her breath. She didn't want to be alone anymore, and she didn't want her family seeing the loneliness she tried so hard to hide from them. She just wanted Jerry back and didn't care about anything else. She didn't care if he came back and they fought every day. She didn't care if they were broke and had no house and no money. She just wanted him. She heard the door open behind her and felt big, strong arms wrapping themselves round her frail body. She cried as though months of built up anguish were all tumbling out at once. What's wrong with her? Didn't she like it? She heard Declan ask wildly. Just leave her be, son, her mum said softly, and the door was closed behind them again as Daniel stroked Hoodie's hair and rocked her softly. Finally, after crying what felt like all the tears in the world, Holly stopped and let go of Daniel. Sorry, she sniffed, drying her face with the sleeves of her top. There's no need to be sorry, he said gently, removing her hand from her face and handing her a tissue. She sat in silence while trying to compose herself. If you're upset about the documentary, then there's no need, he said, sitting down on a crate of glasses opposite her. Yeah, right, she said sarcastically, wiping her tears again. No, really, he insisted. I thought it was really funny. You all looked like you were having a great time. Pity, that's not how I felt, she said sadly. Maybe that's not how you felt, but the camera doesn't pick up on feelings, Holly. You don't have to try to make me feel better. Holly was embarrassed at being consoled by a stranger. I'm not trying to make you feel better. I'm just saying it like it is. Nobody but you noticed whatever it is that upsetting you. I don't see anything, so why should anyone else? Holly felt mildly better. Are you sure? I'm sure. So sleepy. Okay, Daniel said, smiling. Now, you really have to stop hiding in all the rooms in my club. I might take it personally, he laughed. Are the girls okay? Holly asked, hoping it was just her being stupid after all. There was loud laughter from outside. They are fine. As you can hear, he nodded towards the door. Kiara's delighted everyone will think she's a star. Denise has finally come out of the toilet, and Sharon just can't stop laughing, although Jack's giving AB a hard time about throwing up on the way home. Holy chuckled. So you see, nobody even noticed what you saw. Thanks, Daniel. She took a deep breath and smiled at him. You ready to go? Face your public? Think so. Holy stepped outside to the sounds of laughter. The lights were up, and everyone was sitting around the table, happily sharing jokes and stories. Holly sat beside her mum. Elizabeth wrapped her arm around her daughter and gave her a kiss on the cheek. Well, I thought it was great, announced Jack enthusiastically. If only we could get Declan to go out with the girls all the time, then we'd know what they get up to, John? He winked at Sharon's husband. Well, I can assure you, AB spoke up, that what you saw is not a regular girls' night out. The boys weren't having any of it. So, is it okay? Declan asked, wholly afraid he had upset her. Holly threw him a look. I thought you would like it, Ho, he said worriedly. I might have liked it if I had known what you were doing, she snapped back. But I wanted it to be a surprise, he said genuinely. I hate surprises. She rubbed her stinging eyes. Let that be a lesson for you, son, Frank warned Declan. You shouldn't go around filming people without them knowing what you're doing. It's illegal. I bet they didn't know what they that when they chose him for the award. Elizabeth agreed. You're not gonna tell them, are you, Holly? Declan asked worriedly. Not if you are nice to me for the next few months, Holly said shyly, twisting her hair around her finger. Declan made a face. He was stuck and he knew it. Yeah, whatever, he said, waving her away. To tell you the truth, Holly, I have to admit, I thought it was quite funny, giggled Sharon. You and your Operation Gold Curtain. She thumped Denise playfully on the leg. Denise rolled her eyes. I can tell you all something. I'm never drinking again. Everyone laughed and Tom put his arm around her shoulders. What? She said innocently. I actually mean it. Speaking of drink, would anyone like one? Daniel stood up from his chair. Jack? Yeah, a Budweiser, thanks. AB? A white wine, please, she said politely. Frank? Guinness, thanks, Daniel. I'll have the same, said John. Sharon? Vodka and Coke, please. Holly, you want the same? Holly nodded. Tom? JD and Coke, please. Dan? Me too, and said Declan. Denise? Daniel tried to hide his smile. Um, I'll have a gin and tonic, please. Ha! Everyone jeered her. What? She shrugged her shoulders as though she didn't care. One drink is hardly going to kill me. Holly was standing over the sink with her sleeves rolled up and her elbows scrubbing the pots when she heard the familiar voice. Hi, honey. She looked up and saw him standing at the open patio doors. Hello, you, she smiled. Miss me? Of course. Have you found that new husband yet? Of course I have. He's upstairs, in bed, asleep. She laughed, drying her hands. Jerry shook his head and tutted. Shall I go up and suffocate him for sleeping in our bed? Ah, give him another hour or so, she joked, looking at her watch. He needs his rest. He looked happy, she thought, fresh-faced and still as beautiful as she remembered. He was wearing her favorite blue top she had bought him one Christmas. She stared at her. He stared at her from under his long eyelashes with his big brown puppy eyes. Are you coming in? She asked, smiling. No, I just popped by to see how you are doing. Everything going okay? He leaned against the door jamb with his hands in his pocket. So, she said, weighing her hands in the air. Could be better. I hear you're a TV star now, he grinned. A very reluctant one, she laughed. You'll have men falling all around you, he assured her. falling all around me is right, she joked. The problem is they keep missing the target. She pointed to herself. He laughed. I missed you, Jerry. I haven't gone far, he said softly. You leaving me again? For the time being. See you soon, she smiled. He winked at her and disappeared. Holly woke up and a smile on her face, with a smile on her face, and felt as if she had slept for days. Good morning, Jerry, she said happily, staring up at the ceiling. The phone rang beside her. Hello? Oh my god, Holly, just take a look at the weekend papers, Sharon said in a panic. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 19. Thank you for tuning in.